G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. Now this combination, it's FIA, the new manufacturer series, the actual series. It's my second attempt at a race actually. I did the first round at Suzuka, but it kind of didn't go well. I mean, you can see there I have a 130 points already. So that were my points from Suzuka. I had 2 races there and I was in the mid-pack on my own most of the time. It was extremely boring. It really did not warrant a video, so I did not bother. But this is my second run. It's Laguna Seca, so it's a repeat combination from the previous season. You may have seen my video from that, but we'll explain more about the combination as I kind of we'll go straight into the qualifying session as well. So it's pretty much the exact same race. The only difference being you cannot do the penalty strategy. You can't do soft stint and then take a penalty and get ahead far enough. Coming into turn 1 though, we'll brake on the number 3 board. I'll take you through a lap and then we'll explain more about it. Nice and patient on the exit of the Andretti hairpin. Up towards turn 3, very difficult corner. You really have to overslow the car more than you think. 3rd gear through there, nice and stable on the exit. We just touched the dirt on the outside, but not to worry. Turning in just on the end of the curb on the left hand side, meeting the apex just after the red sausage, but you don't want to touch it. Up towards turn 5, braking halfway between the 2 and the 3 boards, turning in nice and early, using that camber on the inside. The car perches nicely towards the exit. Do not want to touch the grass or the dirt on the outside there, braking just on the 2, down to about 155 kilometers an hour as we head through the dip of turn 6, up the Rahal straight towards the corkscrew. The chicane of the corkscrew, braking on the number 3 board. You kind of want to straight line this. You can have 2 wheels on the curb and 2 wheels beyond the curb and get through there penalty free. Through rainy curve, just touch the sausage a little bit, but not to worry. We're still in the slipstream of the Audi TT up ahead, which is nice. Braking just on the start of the curb on the left hand side for the second to last corner, and then for the final corner, braking on the number 3 board. We're actually a little bit wide off the apex, but we are once again in the slipstream of the Audi, so we are able to kind of rescue the lap down the straight, and we end up with actually a pole position lap at the time, provisional pole of a 126.8, but we're going to see a few, about 30 seconds later, Tankmaster 34 gets me for pole position by about 0.2 of a second. Now I did actually go for a couple more laps, but my tyres were pretty worn out at this point after doing an out lap and 2 flying laps, and you see I actually bin it. So that was also my last opportunity at a lap as well. So we do settle with my 126.8, which is fine. Second position is fairly good. I will take that. Much better than my Suzuka result there, but you can see the grid there, the final grid. And once again, as always, with the FIA races, let's enjoy the intro. Very well, so we move on to the grid now, and we're going to have a look at some of the cars perched on the grid now. There's my Rothmans Toyota 86 in the second position there, but there's Tankmaster, who's in the Mercedes SLS, another quite strong car, obviously, put it on pole position. But there's myself. We're going to skip to the end of the field. I have a bit of a shout out to do. Shout out for Inksile GTR NZ. He's actually one of the first people that ever commented on my stuff, and he commented on an Instagram post. Follow me on Instagram, saying that I think we got into a lobby together. So he was unfortunately in the last position, but he's in the Nissan GTR, which is a very bulky car, really not quite suited for Laguna Seca. So that's, no ill respect to him, but it's kind of to be expected at a track like this. Probably, small and nimble cars going to do well, like the Alfa, the Toyota. Actually front wheel drive cars are quite strong as well. We're actually going to see that in the opening stages of the race. So we do have the Mercedes SLS up ahead, He actually has quite a large margin on me at the start of the race. But behind we have CST BFO underscore Shumi. We'll just call him Shumi. He's in the Volkswagen Scirocco. This track, the front-wheel drive cars are quite strong at this track, especially at the start of the stint. However, they do suffer from tyre wear more than sort of FR or RR cars, although I don't think there are any RR cars in Group 4. But you see immediately, Volkswagen Scirocco goes up the inside, and that's fine. I mean, Toyota 86, not great on the straight, if I'm honest. It's one of the poorer cars in the straight. It's much more balanced through the corners, though, and that's what I like about it. But a Volkswagen Scirocco, very good in the straight. I'm not quite sure how the Mercedes is. I don't think I've ever driven that car. And I've got another FF car behind me, the Audi TT. So we're going to have to worry, or keep an eye on the car behind. Hopefully we don't succumb to another overtake, because, you know, every time I get overtaken I lose time. And that's really another main point of this race. We'll see, I've put the whole race in, I was going to say unedited, but there is an edit slightly coming up. But we'll see that when we get to it. Coming through the final corner, Audi TT tries to come up the inside of the Scirocco, which is already up the inside of me, and it gets quite awkward there, and you might have seen on the radar that Audi TT nearly actually turned around the Scirocco, and I think, you know, the saving grace is the fact that Scirocco's front-wheel drive, so it doesn't have to worry about, you know, oversteer whilst getting on the power, which we were at that point when the incident occurred, so we managed to just fall back into the how we were, but we really have to watch the gap to the leader now, as, you know, we're beginning to be on the fringes of its slipstream. We probably are already, to be honest, because I think they reduced the slipstream, but I don't quite know to what they reduced it to. But my car is 1.5 seconds from the leader, and I've got Shumi up ahead about 4 tenths behind, so he's about 1.1 seconds behind the leader at this point. He runs quite wide through turn 5. We managed to get a run up towards turn 6, but like I said, Scirocco much better in a straight line compared to the Toyota 86. So he's always going to get the run on me up the straights, especially uphill, which is this straight here. But we have managed to sort of rescue. We're back into the slipstream, you know, firmly of the leader. So we don't want to try and fight too much and lose that. You see the Audi TT is beginning to drop off behind. That's another thing to note. So front-wheel drive cars are going to suffer at the end of the stints quite heavily, especially on softer tyres, because their front wheels do everything. They steer, you know, the weight goes to the front under braking. You're going to wear out your front tyres while braking, and, you know, they're steering and accelerating. They're doing everything. So they get quite a lot of exit understeer. While getting on the power, they like to understeer and spin up the wheels, especially in second gear when the tyres are really worn, and on hard tyres as well. So we do have to watch for that. So the Scirocco I do expect to drop off or go in for the early pit stop, as I assume the two cars up ahead are on soft tyres. I'm managing to keep them on soft tyres as well. We're going to talk about strategy for a little bit. You might remember from the previous video, I did mention it quite briefly earlier. In the previous season, the penalty for not meeting the tyre requirements is 20 seconds, and in most instances that would be enough, but the pit lane here is so long. Actually, we'll come back to that. Shumi goes up the inside of the Mercedes, leaves him offline on the exit of turn 5, and I managed to get alongside as well, and he kind of backs out, which is fair play to him. I was well alongside, coming up towards turn 6, which is quite a good overtaking opportunity, but only if you're alongside. There's no, lunging up for moves at turn 6. But we managed to get that move done, so Shumi's had quite a good opening race there. He's up into first position and is kind of driving away from me as it seems here, so he may have been getting held up by the Mercedes a little bit. As you can see, he's now kind of driving away from me, up to a second ahead already. But we'll just quickly come back to the strategy. Yeah, you might remember the previous season. Tyre requirements, you have to use all 3 compounds for at least 1 lap, so ideal strategy is sort of 8 laps on soft, 7 laps on medium, 1 lap on hard. But because the pit lane is so long, by going for that second pit stop to meet the requirements, it's actually longer than doing 1 stop, going onto soft tyres, and then allowing the rest of the field to take their 2 pit stops. You end up with a gap big enough to be able to take that 20-second penalty and still remain in the lead. If you saw my video on that, the leader, for example, was 27 seconds ahead at the end of the race, took a 20-second penalty for not meeting the tyre requirements, and ended up with a 9-second margin. So quite significant. But this is the next season. They did an update. The penalty for not meeting tyre requirements is now 1 minute. So extremely significant. I cannot honestly imagine any track that would have a pit lane long enough to be able to sort of counteract the effect of not going into the pits, you know, and being able to take a 1 minute penalty and still being able to win. Unless the rest of the field completely and utterly destroy themselves, or you're the only car in the race. So, the strategy here I've gone for, because I started at the front, I want to be on soft tyres from the start to try and... I don't want to fall back into the pack and get stuck in traffic. So soft tyres, then medium tyres, and your hard tyre stint right at the end. Which is what we've gone for here. So, beginning of lap 5, I've managed to catch up the gap towards Schumi a little bit, which is good. You know, I don't want to sort of allow him to drive away. And because there's a lot of pit stop phases in the race, you know, everyone's going to take 2 stops, so everyone has 3 stints of where they can be at different points in the road, different points on the track. Losing time is also extremely critical because everyone has so many pit stops and so many stints. It's difficult to keep track of you know, what point of the race everyone's in. So the strategies very much converge, you know, essentially at the last lap when the soft tyre runners take their 1 lap on hard. So essentially we're not going to see until lap 15 how everyone's race is played out. So that's why it's extremely critical, especially through the midpoint of the race. For example here, we don't want to be losing time to, you know, we don't want to be losing time to other drivers here. So we want to avoid fighting, because if you lose time in the mid part of the race, say you lose 3 seconds, 1 lap, say you lose 3 seconds on lap 7, all of a sudden you might lose those 3 laps, those 3 seconds, sorry. At the end you might be 3 seconds behind the leader, and then that's an example of how the fighting can kind of, you know, lead to, you know, losing positions, and we're gonna try and keep tabs on that. Through the final corner now, the Scirocco, obviously on its soft tyres, is beginning to struggle, especially in the exit of that final corner, so that's a traction zone. Turn 2 is a traction zone as well, or the exit of turn 2 rather. And we're going to begin to see that Scirocco struggle on its tyres. And I think that's something to note as he runs quite deep into turn 1. I'm taking a much tighter line, not on the power nice and early. I mentioned previously, or I have mentioned historically, that I like the Toyota 86 because it feels so balanced to drive. It's really nice. There's not, you know, no drama on the exit. Understeer, it's not so bad. So that's why I like driving it. You see the Scirocco is really beginning to struggle. We're now going to turn our attention to the car behind, GT_Rebecca. I assume it's a she, but you know, I'll call it a driver. That driver is in the Porsche Cayman. Very strong handling car, very much, you know, matched to the Toyota 86. In that, not so good on the straights, very good in handling, although the driver has much more pace on me at the moment, so I think, you know, we're beginning to sort of think about that car behind as well. But this here is where the Scirocco is going to go into the pits. You see through this lap that Scirocco really struggled. But you know, put your listening ears on. You know, what is that sound? Oh no. Oh, something's going to happen here. Let's see. Oh, we have a look behind. There we go. Ripperoni pizza. That is honestly the fattest slice of ripperoni pizza I've ever seen. So as I was beginning to worry about the Porsche behind, they just binned themselves completely and absolutely died. If Rebecca, you're watching this, I don't mean that entire sequence in any sort of ill manner. It was just, you know, I thought it'd be quite funny. I thought I'd do my part to try and kill that meme. best way to kill it is to overuse it, so why not create an entire, extremely over-edited sequence of absolute death. But once again, if you are watching this, you did kind of allow me to relax a little bit throughout this race. So I was beginning to get quite tense and beginning to worry about an overtake from you, but we do not have to worry about that anymore. So with the Porsche out of the picture, we can now focus on putting in a clean lap without the Scirocco in front of us. So Scirocco goes into the pits, I assume is either going to go onto the medium or the hard tyre. So our lap here on the soft, especially being in a car which is much better on its tyres, is probably going to be quicker than, I forgot the name, Schumi, the Scirocco. We go into the pits a lap later, the end of 7, so that's fine. We must, I don't know, soft tyres I must have been wanting to go into the pits, probably could have stayed out an extra lap, but we'll go into the medium tyres. I'm going to keep this pit sequence at 1x speed. We can see, you know, just as to jog your memory, just how long this pit lane is. You know, 16 seconds have passed at the moment. We're still not in the pit box. There we go, 20 seconds it takes from pit entry to the pit box. You know, it's really extremely long, and that is how the strategy in the previous video was able to work out how you were able to take that penalty and still sort of, you know, keep quite a large margin. But they have of course fixed that. So we're going to come out of the pits to begin lap 8 on our medium tyre stint. Everyone is going to take 2 stops because you now have to. You know, the penalty for not using your tyres or not meeting the tyre requirements is now extremely significant, so there is absolutely no chance. So we're going to have a look behind. I've got Tankmaster behind me actually, so he's 1 second behind. You might remember we overtook him because he was offline through this very corner coming up on the exit. He's now 8/10 behind me, so we've kind of, you know, we've kind of remained kind of a similar distance behind. He's probably gained, if anything. I think he ended up losing a little bit of time after that overtake and ended up dropping quite far back. And I get a nice run on the exit of turn 6, really pushing the track to its limits. See how close I was to the dirt on the outside on the exit of turn 6. But we now, you know, we have to kind of think about sort of the long term here as well, because Tankmaster is now essentially 7/10 behind. So we kind of have to, you know, he's my main rival. He started on pole position. He's the fastest, well, you know, theoretically he's the fastest driver. So we now have to try and focus on not losing time, because this is how, you know, after the pit stop phase, this is how sort of other cars can get into the mix. And you saw Schumi, he went into the pits quite early. He could be very well stuck in traffic. He's not in the top 8, at least. Oh, there he is now. Just as I say it. But, you know, if he doesn't get caught in traffic, he could very well contend for the victory here, because that Scirocco is so good at the start of its stints, it can perhaps afford to sort of spend shorter time on the softer tyres and a little bit longer on the harder tyre to take advantage of when each compound is at its grippiest. But unfortunately, we're going to begin to sort of fall victim to a little bit of a fight here. I didn't have to, but I let him through there. He kind of began to stick his nose up the inside of turn 4. He wasn't alongside far enough, so I didn't really give him the space, but he kind of sort of kept his car there, and I thought, you know, it's really not worth running side by side through corners, so I just let him have the position. And that is where kind of I wanted to leave this fight. I kind of just wanted to pull away from the rest of the pack. I wanted to keep in this guy's slipstream, save a bit of fuel so I don't have to refuel as much, don't have to remain stationary for as long in the pit lane. But we're going to monitor this, because I didn't really want Tankmaster to begin to start to make mistakes. And then, you know, he ends up getting backed up into me again, and I end up losing more time. So we're going to come across the line through the final corner. Actually get that nicely. Tankmaster gets a little bit squirmy on the exit. I do as well, as that AstroTurf is quite dirty. We'll cross the line to 1:29.2 that lap time. So we did lose probably about half a second to a second, just from that little bit of an incident through sort of the turns 4, 5, and 6, where Tankmaster tried to, or successfully I guess, make a move up into the first position. But once again, we're going to try and monitor where he's weak. I don't really want to sort of, I don't really want to overtake him, to be honest. I just want to remain in his slipstream, like I said. But we are going to try and monitor where he's weak. Let's have a look on the entry to turn 5. He's actually a little bit weak through there, 14th behind. I gained about a 10th coming through there, so I think the Toyota 86 is a little bit more balanced than the Mercedes SLS, so I'm able to sort of keep mid-speed corner up a little bit more effective than him. He runs a bit wide through turn 6. I'm flashing my headlights. I don't really want to go for the move. I kind of wanted him to let me go, but he doesn't, and he goes really slow through the corkscrew because he had dirt on his right-hand tyres. You can even see that with the headlights pointed on. Not so much anymore, and now scrubbed off. But you see how slow he is on the exit of 9, coming into, oh, it's actually 10, sorry, this is 11. On the exit of 11, running quite slow through there. I try and look around the outside, but I give him way too much space on the inside. He just shoots through the inside there. So this is a fight I don't want to be a part of. And you might have noticed the gap between myself and Barters. It was about 6 seconds. It's now 4.5. That lap time of 29.5. So I'm losing so much time on my medium tyre stint, which honestly you don't really want to lose time on your grippier tyre stints. You see he's really slow. On the exit of turn 2, I just bump him, you know. I go much faster on the exit there, perhaps struggling with the pressure a little bit. Then on the exit of 3, I get quite a poor exit. I was weak through turn 3, that I'll wholeheartedly admit that. It's a very difficult corner to get right. It's kind of blind, you can't really see the apex when you're turning in until you're kind of halfway towards the apex. So, you know, it's kind of difficult to... it is a difficult corner for me. We both run wide on the exit of turn 5. Tankmaster grazes the gravel again on the exit of 6, but he gains out up to 6/10 at this point. So honestly, that I'd rather him be 6/10 ahead than 6,000ths of a second ahead, because that is when we begin to lose time. If he's this far ahead, I can kind of utilise his slipstream. We don't really lose that much time. So it's kind of okay to be this far behind, and I'm happy to be this far behind as well. But on the exit of 11, he just grazes one wheel onto the dirt and gets a poor run up towards the final corner. And then we both put our wheels into the dirty AstroTurf on the exit, running down on the main straight. Now, beginning lap 12, so this race is going fine. I mean, you see that lap time, 1:28.5, a whole second faster than the lap we were fighting on. So it really goes to show just how much time you can lose from just even a slight bit of fighting, and that is kind of the trade-off in racing here, especially on this game. You kind of have to balance making moves for the greater, for the greater cause, essentially, versus losing time fighting that player, because you don't want to let a player ahead thinking, I'll just let him go, we won't lose as much time. You then don't want that driver to begin to start to make mistakes, because then you'll end up just fighting with him again, and you'll be like, oh, why did I let him go for? He's making mistakes. So we did see a little bit of that with this driver here, but he seems to have got his act together for the previous lap and a bit, and he's managed to streak out nearly 9/10. So we're just going to utilise that slipstream up the hill to help the little Toyota up the hill, coming through the corkscrew now. Nice run through there. See the gap, still about 9/10. My tactic through the corkscrew actually was, or I did it most of the time, I think there was a few occasions where I didn't. Second gear for turn 8, the top part, and then immediately up to third and full on the power as we drop down turn 9. I think you drop like 6 stories worth of distance, vertical distance through the corkscrew, and turn 10 rainy curve. On the exit of the final corner, once again, he goes as far as to touch the gravel on the exit rather than the dirty AstroTurf, so we'll see coming into the braking zone. He has to brake really quite early, see how much time we gain, and he slides through the mid part of the corner and onto the power on the exit. We have that overlap on the outside. I just sort of back out of it a little bit. I was not far enough alongside. He could have very well shut the door on me, fully, justified. Right on his tail up towards turn 4. So this is not ideal here, what's coming on here. Honestly, if I had known that it would have kind of turned into this, you see, I'm bumping into the back of him again. He can go much faster through these corners. See how far off the exit apex he is. He was kind of half a car width off the edge of the curb. So I would really, honestly, if I knew that this kind of would have happened, I probably would have defended a bit harder earlier in the race when I let him go. Coming towards the corkscrew now, I got a move up on turn 6, but he pokes his nose up the inside again, a little bit of side-to-side contact, and this, honestly, this is really not what I wanted at all, and he manages to go through it again, and I just go into the back of him again immediately. So look, no hard feelings, like this is racing, but in terms of my entire race, give him a bit of a flash. He actually goes into the pit lane, which, honestly, that did annoy me a little bit. I don't know why he was fighting so much if he was going to go into the pit lane anyway. He kind of... I mean, if you should rewind and have a look where he went for the move up the inside of the corkscrew. I turned in and had to turn out of it because he was so quickly coming up the inside, and it was kind of, I don't know, maybe he he should have broken a bit later, I would say, to sort of put his car up the inside a little bit earlier. It was quite a late move up the inside. But through that course of fighting, GT Rebecca, the one that had the dancing Ghana pallbearer accident, is now only 5 seconds behind. I'm going to assume it's a she. She lost probably, how long would you say? 7 seconds from the accident? 5 to 7 seconds, I would say. And she's now just over 5 seconds behind me. So essentially, we've lost, that accident's worth of time to her, because, we're now sort of the difference between myself and her is 5.5. She had lost about 5 seconds, I would estimate, from the accident. So, it's really not ideal. But coming through the corkscrew, we gain another 2 tenths, 5.7 on the Porsche there. So this is lap 14. We're going to come in for our last stint as well on our hard tyres. We refueled in the first stop, so we don't have to refuel in the second stop. But I am worried here because 5 seconds is not that big of a gap to sort of, keep after going into the pit lane, although they do follow me in as well. We're both on 10% fuel. S1E2 E3 TH goes in, had the soft tyre stint with 14% of fuel. He's got a lot of fuel to burn. Sledgy and Shumi, Tankmaster, all go up into 1, 2, and 3. So, if we remember, Tankmaster went in a lap earlier than me, so I assume he's going to do two laps on his tyres. Sledgy is in the lead. Shumi is in second. They both drive past me, and I think we will see Tankmaster. I think he's beside me on the track. Yeah, there he is, sweeping around turn 2. On the exit, let's see how close this is. I flick onto the radar, and yeah, Tankmaster gets in ahead. So, if we have a look, the gap towards the leader, 3 seconds. We are on the hard tyres, which is the worst tyre. But if we sort of cast our eyes to my lap time board, I did a 29.5 compared to a 28.5, so that's a second. That accounts for a second of it. 29.2 compared to 29.2 compared to a 28.2 on lap 12. There's another second. And then, let's have a look. I'm trying to work this out. We've accounted for 2 seconds of the pit loss, 2 seconds of the time loss, and there's a massive incident coming through turn 6. I grazed the gravel on the entry and nearly spin out, but I managed to save it much better than Tankmaster did, but I do have dirty tyres for the corkscrew. Tankmaster did a full 360 there, so obviously pushing, we're not used to the hard tyres, obviously, that's where that happened. I managed to pick myself up a penalty. You see the gap between myself and Tankmaster is actually fairly marginal as well. It was essentially just a second, so I have to get a good run out of the final corner now, so we're getting onto the power nice and early. A little bit of oversteer, but I managed to catch it and keep the car straight, and the gap extends to 1.3, so a half-second penalty will, of course, it rounds up to the nearest second always. So I do cross the line with a 1 second penalty, but I did have a large enough gap to Tankmaster. So, in conclusion, I'm happy with the third place, if I'm honest. Manufacturers, FIA, you're always looking for good results, and especially, I'm getting put up into quite, well, not that good, but my DR is over 40,000, 42,000 or something. So, I pick up 208 points for Toyota, which is, we're all well and good, happy with that. But yeah, we can easily see, I could account for 2 seconds just from the lap times shown on my screen at the final lap. I accounted for 2 seconds of time loss between myself and the leader, thanks to fighting a little bit with Tankmaster through the mid part of that race. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this one. I do hope you enjoyed it very much. The exact same combination as a previous video, but I hope once again the strategy was interesting as always. But that's going to be the end of this one today. Do hit that like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me in your subscription box. Have a look down in the description, follow my Instagram on there, bit of a shameless plug, but that's where I'm going to leave this one today. And that means that is it from me, so once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.